I'm Mary Himes, the president of the Scriba Historical Society currently. And I'd like you to welcome Deb Allen. She's our Oswego County historian. She's been doing a great job. And just help us welcome Deb for this presentation on the Revolutionary War veterans of Oswego County.
So, oops. I made a few notes. I have been researching the Revolutionary War soldiers and their widows who lived, died, or buried in Oswego County for 3 or 4 years now. And Sean Doyle and I have been collaborating on this book. We are now up to 460 veterans, and the book is currently at 824 pages. So we were hoping to publish it this year, but since I found another 100 guys in the last month, and they are not all filled out, and we'd already decided it wasn't going to happen this year, because we figure that with it being the 250th, we're going to have people coming out of war work saying, well, how about this guy? And I want him in the book, not in an addendum. So today we're just going to concentrate on these guys. So who here has Revolutionary War ancestors? Just one. I proved yours recently.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, the Pomeroy Foundation proved him. I couldn't misspell his name correctly.
You couldn't misspell it correctly?
Right.
I got you.
The way to find some of these guys is to misspell their name. They couldn't spell. They're even worse than I am. I tried finding James Jarrett. I've tried for a long time. I tried Jerrett. I've tried it with an I. I've tried it with one R, with one T, with a D. Nothing. Well, I was recently applying for a Patriot Burial marker for the cemetery that he's buried in. And John at the Pomeroy Foundation come back with, I've got another guy that you don't have on your list. I says, well, I ain't James Jarrett. He said, yeah. It's like, how in blue blazes? He says, change the J to a G.
Wow.
There he was.
Of course, he was on the other side.
No, he started out on the other side. James Jarrett started out on the British side. He deserted at Saratoga in 1777 and joined the American side. Yes. Oh. So I have his pension paper. And there were at least 2 other guys who deserted that day, at that battle and joined the American side, and they all came to New Haven.
Really?
Well, one of them I don't know. I haven't proved that he's joined the American side, but Conrad had proved. Lori, how many Revolutionary War veterans are in Scriba?
I believe there are 4 or 5.
Try 10.
No.
And 3 widows.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, extraordinary.
I found a couple more the other day.
That's fantastic. Yay.
When I'm looking for these guys, I usually start out with a name. I started off with a list that all the towns had, and I went on fold 3 and I searched with the names, and had to go through and figure out which one it was. And then eventually, I ran out of people giving me names, and I had this harebrained idea, well, why don't I just try searching Oswego? That didn't work because AI mistook Owego, Otsego, and I had so many hits that were irrelevant that it's unbelievable. So then I put in Scriba as a search criteria, hit search, and then added the word Oswego as search criteria and hit search. And I came up with just a few hits, and they were mostly relevant. Occasionally you get somebody from Scriba who was attesting to somebody else's service, but there's a pretty good chance that person was in Oswego County, and I might get to add that person to my list. So I added 100 guys from that. Yeah. So they're in the book. They have their page, but they basically have a placeholder for now because I've downloaded their pensions, but I haven't gotten around to reading them. So some of these pensions, they range from like 17 pages of really crappy handwriting with a quill to 125 pages of that same crappy writing. Yeah.
What exactly is a pensions? Is it like their story?
When they were fighting, they were supposed to get paid. And then the government realized they didn't have any money to pay them. So they offered them a pension. But the pensions didn't become available until 1818. By that time, quite a few of them had already passed. And they also, at one point, they decided to offer them land grants, which came even later. And most of them had passed before the land grants came through. But their widows and children were able to claim them. Most of them never occupied those land grants. Instead, they sold them to somebody else because by the time they got the land grant, they were settled. They built their house, so they sold them to somebody else, usually for pennies on the dollar. But anything is better than nothing. So our first patriot from Scriba, and these are in alphabetical order, not in any order of importance, is Hezekiah Barrett. And his name, he signed his name B-A-R-O-T-T.
Really?
We've also found it spelled B-A-R-R-O-T-T and B-A-R-R-E-T-T. Not uncommon to find, variations like that. He was born on March 22nd, 1762 in Hartford County, Connecticut. He enlisted in July of 1778 for 1 month as a substitute for John Mills. If you were unable to serve or didn't want to, you could pay somebody to serve instead of you. And he served for 1 month. And then he turned out as a substitute for Moses Baker for 2 months. And then in 1779, he served as a substitute for Thomas Ford. And I believe he served for 6 months that time. And then after all that, in 1780, he joined as a volunteer for himself. He was there when Major Andre was tried for treason as a spy at Orangetown. And he served that time for 6 months. And then in 1781, he volunteered to serve for 1 year. So Hezekiah was allowed a pension in the amount of $50 a year after all that service. He received the pension in 1832, and the last pension payment was made the third quarter of 1837. So he died in 1838, although it may have been 1837. We don't have the exact date here. In Scriba. We do not know where he's buried. There are people in the DAR and the SAR under him, and he does not have a find-a-grave site yet. He will have. Before I'm done, every one of these will have a find-a-grave site. I need one more thing to do. Daniel Burt Jr. is buried in Riverside Cemetery, which is in Scriba. Not sure exactly where he lived. He may have actually lived in Minetto. But he was born October 20th, 1740 in Ridgefield, Fairfield County, Connecticut. But he was the son of Daniel and Hannah Benedict Burt, and his wife was Martha Bradner. And the Bradners were all patriots. It was not uncommon for one patriot to marry another patriot's daughter. Daniel was buried in the 5th Ward Cemetery in Oswego, and on June 15th, 1888, when they closed that cemetery, they dug all the bodies up, and he was moved to Riverside.
Oh, where was that cemetery located, do you know?
Let's see.
Well, it might be on the site now.
There in Oswego, there's 2 schools. Fitzhugh and Kingsford. One was the 4th Ward Cemetery, the other was the 5th Ward Cemetery.
Oh, okay. And then they became.
And both of them became schools. But I'm assuming long after they actually closed the cemetery. They tended to close the cemetery and put a park there. John Cummins, Comins, was born May 31st, 1754 in Wilmington, Tolan County, Connecticut, and he enlisted May 1st, 1775 and served as a private for 7 months. And then he re-enlisted in the spring of 1776 and served for 11 months. Then he joined again in 1777 at Westchester, New York. So he actually served from more than one state. In 1777, he enlisted in a company of Teamsters, which he commanded. He had charge of the public teams to supply the forces at White Plains. It's unclear at what time he lived in Scriba or for how long, but he stated in one of his pension applications that he had lived in Scriba, New York. John died February 28, 1836, and he left no widow. However, his wife was Sarah Sibley. He is buried in Halesboro Cemetery in Halesboro in St. Lawrence County. A lot of these guys came here for a while and then moved on. These guys have lived in more places than we did. And in their older age, they frequently lived with this child for a year or two and then this child for a year or two. They were very popular with that pension.
No.
Yeah, we were telling about the pensions. Given that some of them died before the pensions were even done, were the applications done by like a wife or a spouse or?
Yeah, after a while, I forgot what year it was. It was quite late. They allowed pensions for widows, and so the widows applied, and that would be a widow's pension. Widows' pensions are great because first they have to prove their husband's service.
Right.
They usually tell you when he died, if not where. They have to prove who their family was. So they usually tell you, we lived here, and then we lived here, and we lived here, more than the patriots themselves did. So you get a lot more information from the widow's pensions usually.
Okay.
The original pensions were 1818. In 1823, they changed the rules, and everybody had to reapply.
Really?
When they reapplied in 1823, they were required to give more information. But if they died before 1818 and their widow didn't apply for a pension, if we have a name, we may still be able to prove their service from muster rolls. But with them, there's sometimes a little bit of a leap of faith. If you're looking for Solomon Smith, you know how many Solomon Smiths there were? We found him. Solomon Smith was the first settler in New Haven.
Oh.
Most of the first settlers in each of the towns were veterans. So, I recently proved Oliver Stevens, who was the first settler in the county. Well, and the timing was perfect on that. I called Sean to tell him I had it, and the president of the Brewerton Historical Society happened to be sitting next to him. He immediately had to find that pension, copy and paste all of the form, print out 10 copies so she could take it to the board meeting that night. So Thomas Congdon is one of the guys that more than one town gets to claim. He lived in Scriba. He's buried in New Haven. So Thomas Congdon is buried in Butterfly Cemetery in New Haven. He is the only patriot that we have proven in Butterfly Cemetery. There's a good chance that there's one or two more, but most of the stones are gone. But we got a Patriot burial marker for Butterfly Cemetery that we are going to be dedicating, I think in September. So Thomas Congdon was from Cranston, Rhode Island, and he was listed among the officers of the 1st Militia Company of Cranston, Rhode Island in 1778 through May of 1881, raising from the rank of ensign to captain. He served at the Battle of Rhode Island and the defense of Newport. Samuel Dunham was born January 15th, 1765 in Newport, Rhode Island. He was in Captain Piercy's company in June of 1781 and then served 3 months as a private in Captain Mill's company in the Massachusetts militia. After the Revolution, he, like a lot of them, lived in a lot of different places. The 1800, 1810, and 1820 census show him living in Stillwater in Saratoga County. The 1830 census shows Samuel living in Scriba. 1832, he was living in Scriba at the age of 67. He died November 25th, 1839. His widow applied for a widow's pension, but it was denied. Samuel was a clergyman. His sons, William and Moses, were Methodist Episcopal preachers. Nathan Warden. We don't have a lot of information on him. He was born about 1751, and he enlisted in January 1st, 1777 as a private in the regiment called the 5th Regiment of the New York Line. He was stationed at Fort Schuyler. In the year 1778, he was transferred into the company commanded by Captain Thomas DeWitt and served until the year 1780. He was discharged at Albany. He was granted a pension of $8 a month. But he applied for his pension in 1818. A good share of them applied in 1818, as early as you could. So April of 1818, it pops up a lot. And he was a resident of Oswego County at the age of 67. On September 19th, 1820, he was living in Scriba at the age of 67. And he stated that he was a farmer, but unable to do labor because of a rupture in the lower part of his body. He said he had no family and paid his board by the week. Then Aaron Wheeler is another one of them that is 2 towns. He was in Scriba and in Volney. He was born January 26, 1758 in Chatham, Windham County, or Connecticut, sorry. He entered the service as a private on March 1st, 1775, while living with his father in Chatham, Windham County. He marched with the company to Roxbury near Boston in Massachusetts, where he arrived shortly after the Battle of Bunker Hill. Then about the last of January 1776, he enlisted again, and he was dismissed near the middle of June and returned home. Immediately after he arrived home, Aaron enlisted on board a row galley called the Crane in the naval service for 9 months under Captain Tucker. He was discharged January of 1777 at Kingsbridge. And then in June of 1777, they took a vacation a lot of times before they went back. He enlisted as a private and served for 3 months. He went to Puck Hill on the Hudson River, arrived there soon after the stores were burnt. The stores would be where they stored their supplies. Soon after, he marched to Banbury, where he arrived just after that was burnt. In 1819, he moved to Volney.
Okay.
And then he was included on the 1841 census of pensioners for Revolutionary or military service at the age of 80, living in the town of Scriba. He may have possibly received bounty land in Connecticut or Vermont. The ones from New York, their bounty land was in Granby or Lysander. And he received $49.20 a year. And at Mount Edna Cemetery, there's a big stone with a whole bunch of Revolutionary War soldiers listed. He is on that stone. Okay, Daniel Du Bois is one of those 100 I recently found. All I know is that he lived in Scriba, and I have his pension that I haven't read yet. I read enough of the pensions to see that they lived in Oswego County, and then moved on. Melger Foles, F-O-L-S, was born in German Flats in 1764. He was a sergeant and he resided in Scriba. And I have not gotten through his pension either. Then comes Isaac Fryer, Fryer, who was born March 6, 1762 in Albany. In 1776, he enlisted in the 1st Albany Regiment. He also served in Van Rensselaer's regiment, the 8th. In 1815, Isaac was an alderman in the city of Albany. He was overseer of the poor in 1826, 1827, and 1828. He was buried in the State Street Burial Grounds, which would have been in Albany. But apparently, his grandson, Charles Smith, had him brought up to Riverside. Charles Smith was the builder and owner of the Ontario, the first steamer on Lake Ontario. Then we have Conrad Hay. I knew nothing about Conrad until my phone rang one day, and somebody from wherever was looking for information on his ancestor, Conrad Hay. He had his pension. Said he filed pension in New Haven, New York. So I immediately downloaded the pension, did all kinds of research. And Conrad Hay was a Hessian. He came to America as a soldier in the British Army of General Burgoyne. He left the Army of Burgoyne the day before he enlisted in the American service. So he deserted at Saratoga in 1777. He was in the Battle of Bemis Head at Saratoga. After the war, he remained at Saratoga for a bit before he came to New Haven. And so I, knowing nothing about him and not being able to find much, I decided, okay, I'm going to find out where he lived. So I went to the land records. And I didn't find him in New Haven. I found where he bought property in Scriba, right on the town line. Now, Conrad was German, only spoke German. So my question is, did he really live in New Haven when he filed his pension? Or did he not know that he was on that side of the line? But Conrad's name is sometimes found as Hayes or Haase. If he could read and write, he could only, it was German. So let's not forget the ladies. Quite a few of them outlived their husbands. Now, they applied for pensions, and they came here under varying circumstances, most often to live with a child, because it was too hard for a widow to live on her own. So, Sally Kibbe Jackson, the widow of Reuben Jackson, came here. Reuben was at the Battle of Bunker Hill, and he came home in the month of July in 1777 in a weak and feeble state due to illness from which he never entirely recovered. But yeah, in 1777, he re-enlisted. Sally lived with her daughter, Phoebe Joyce, in Scriba. Her pension was rejected for no proof of service. For proof of service, if they didn't have a discharge paper, which a lot of them didn't, because a lot of times they said they were never given a discharge. They were just verbally discharged. They were just told, go home. But if they were given a discharge, it burned in a house fire, the kids were playing with it and ripped it up, or they just threw it out because it was a useless piece of paper. And then when they finally could get pensions, oh crap. So what they had to do was they had to find somebody who could attest to their service. So, they'd have to find somebody who served with them or somebody who lived where they did, who could say, yes, he was gone from this time to this time, and, and they usually wanted more than one person to attest to it. So if they were having trouble, because, they were living in Oswego County and the people, their family and everybody was living in Massachusetts, sometimes they were rejected, but later got it because they finally got a hold of this person that they thought was dead. I saw one where the widow said she had so many children. She didn't know if any of them were living because she hadn't heard from any of them in the last 3 years. So Levice Clark Darling was the widow of John Darling. John was born in Billingham, Norfolk, Massachusetts, and he enlisted November 1st, 1761. Nope, that's when he was born. Sorry. He enlisted in the month of 1778. He re-enlisted in 1779, and then he enlisted again in 1780. He was in the Battle of Rhode Island. Let's see, he married Levice Clark on June 14th, 1781. He was granted a pension of $36.28 per year. And then after he died, his widow was granted the same pension. On June 26, 1839, she was living in the town of Scriba. John had a brother, Nathaniel Darling. Then we have Hannah Fowler Wilcox Sears. Hannah was the widow of Elias Wilcox, who died in 1810 before pensions were available. She did apply for a widow's pension, which she received. And that's all of them we know from Scriba so far.
They want to work. Oh.
I do have faith that we will find more.
Do you have pictures in there too? You ever get to see pictures?
Well, there was no photographs then.
Right.
We do have occasionally a painting of somebody. So the pictures in the books are their headstones.
I see. I see.
So, well, but I am going to find a way to put a picture in there from the Van Cleef sketchbook that we scanned last week. Captain Van Cleef was a captain of a ship on Lake Ontario, and his sketchbook is about 200 pages long, and he described a boatload of boats, a ton of boats, and drew pictures of them, and they are gorgeous. But there's one picture of the mouth of the Oswego River, and you can see Fort Ontario, the lighthouse that was by the fort, and he says that Fort Oswego was on the other bank between these two steeples. So it's like, I'm going to find a way to get that in that book. So, any good questions?
I think it's interesting that so many came from Connecticut and Rhode Island.
Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island were a lot of them. There were some from New York, but
Is there a map that shows where these where they fought these places like Bunker Hill, and they all had names?
I have not actually found a good map yet, but I had thought that, I need to include a map that shows the places, because these guys were pretty consistent in the battles they fought in. They were all there when Benedict Arnold was caught. They were all there for Arnold. They were all there for the burning of this and that. And so, it's like everyone, the whole army moved together. But, so, anybody else?
I had heard that a number of the British soldiers, and apparently Hessian too, but they came over for the purpose of settling here and used the army as an excuse to get across the pond.
I think they could be. The Hessians, Germany actually sold their services to the British.
Right.
So a lot of the Hessians deserted. Because, they weren't here by choice.
My specialty is dumb questions. They know.
My specialty is dumb answers.
Good. No, I'm not really much. I don't have much knowledge of history stuff because I ignored it all my, so I had to do it anyway. Did they have distinctions as far as military branches back then? So I was thinking
There was the Army, and there was
The guys that were in New England were probably in the Navy.
There was the Army, there was the Navy, there was the Teamsters, but they weren't necessarily from any specific area.
Well, those were the ones that you were saying
Yeah,
actually stayed there and served there. So
right.
I was just guessing that maybe they were Navy, but
Yeah.
And you know, we all think the United States was always as big as it is. At the time of this, the major population was in Connecticut and Massachusetts, maybe Eastern New York, the most. Yeah, we're in the Wild West back then.
When I was in school, I learned about the French and Indian War. I learned about the Revolutionary War. I learned about the War of 1812. We learned it happened out west.
Yeah,
They forgot to tell us we were the West.
yeah.
yeah. But I have would help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got something I gotta find here.
I wasn't here yet, so I didn't remember.
So the people fighting, or the Americans who were here, 33% of them were on the British side, 43% were on the American side, and 24% were neutral,
Oh.
or just didn't want to tell anybody which side they were on.
They were pretty lenient back then. And these short enlistments, wow.
Yeah. Well, they didn't expect the war to last as long as it did. And a lot of times they would join just for one battle. You know, they put out a call for men to go help defend New York from an attack in New York City. You know, and then as soon as that was done, then they went home.
Yeah.
So, and 1/5 of the battles in the Revolutionary War were fought in New York. None of them in Oswego County.
Right.
They tried once. Yes, Lord.
And Deb, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but so a lot of times the soldiers were requested their presence and come help us fight in their local region.
Yes, every state had a militia.
And then there were some that traveled a great distance.
Oh yeah,
So you had both. I mean, that's I think so
Yeah.
just so interesting. It was all on their own to on those free calls to come out. It's an amazing thing that happened. Absolutely.
during the Revolutionary War, all of Oswego County was held by the British. Fort Oswego was used as a supply depot and a launching place for raids. The Indians and the Tories hung out there and went off on their raids. Near the end of the Revolutionary War, George Washington realized that Oswego might be an important place to have control of at the end of the war because of the river. So his last order of the war was for Marinus Willett to take Oswego. Well, they started out from Fort Herkimer, went to Fort Stanwix, and then to Oswego. They arrived in a lake effect snowstorm. The order was that if they couldn't take the fort by surprise, there would be no point in even trying. So when they got there and it was daylight and they saw the British dusting off their cannons, they turned around and went home. Some of them were so frostbitten on that journey that they were crippled for life, including Henry Bakeman, who settled in Granby. He's the only black soldier that we have documented. There were several who were in that raid that came back here to live. And my question is, if they came here in the middle of a lake effect snowstorm, were crippled for life, why would they come back here? Cheap land.
We're still here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they weren't any smarter than we are.
And I think we forget that when we I don't know about anybody else, but reading these stories and stuff, we just think, well, they're traveling by the road, or there weren't any roads.
No, there were no roads.
Nothing. It was all forest, and and we had wolves, and there was all this stuff, in water, and how we're crossing. I just it's amazing.
Oh, as a result of the failure of that expedition, the British did not leave Fort Oswego for 13 years after the end of the war. Fort Oswego was the last place evacuated by the British. So, I was just thinking of something, I forgot it already. Old age, you know. Oh.
That I know that James was in New Haven, but before we go, do you have his information somewhere in there?
He has a place marker so far.
Place marker.
Yeah.
I thought you said you had his,
I have his pension.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not with me.
No, okay. No, but
is there a
sometime-
way that we can get
Yeah.
to it?
Yeah.
Just see it?
Yeah, I got James just about the time I started this search. They got me 100 guys, and so he got put on the back burner.
No, that's okay. I don't mean to distract from what your talk is. I just was curious because you told us some stuff that we weren't aware of.
Yeah. It's always good when you get new stuff.
May I ask a trade question?
Yeah.
A professional question? Like, what are you, when you're transcribing this stuff? Because recently I've had some documents that were pretty difficult. So magnifying, do you have a specific magnifying device that you like to use and for this stuff? Is there something?
Are you kidding? I'm sitting in my recliner.
Well, there's a couple of different ones on the market,
Oh,
and the
Oh,
easiest one.
magnification.
Yeah, no. On the documents I was recently looking at, no, not enough, not good enough. So I didn't know if you had something in particular.
There is a limit to this, too. There are times it's like, oh, come on, just a little more.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
What makes you want, what got you started doing this?
I don't remember. My first Revolutionary War soldier was my ancestor. And then at some point, I realized that, Natalie Woodall has written a lot on the Civil War. She's documented, different regiments, and she's working on another one now, And everybody, there's tons of books out there on the Civil War. Everybody's interested in the Civil War. But nobody has really documented the Revolutionary War. All the towns had lists of Revolutionary War soldiers, but they had no proof of it. So I decided that I was going to take that on. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. No. Yes.
You must have a ton of patience doing this. Does that carry on into the rest of your life, or do you use it all up in the...
Well, it depends on how badly the dog is irritating me.
I just can't even...
And how do you protect it?
And, when it comes to sewing, I got lots of patience. When it comes to the 3D printer, I gave it to my niece today. Not that one.
Not this one.
Yeah, that's my niece, but not the one that got the 3D printer.
I don't have patience for that either.
That's probably why I didn't give it to you. But if anybody knows any good craft shows, Alicia needs to know about it.
Oh, we're plenty. We're plenty. Where do you feel like you have enough protected locking away all your hard work in your home or the office, or because you are the Oswego?
Here it is.
Okay.
I do back that up on the county server
Okay.
on a regular basis. And then every now and then we print a new copy of the book. I'll give Sean a USB key with the book on it. And while he's downloading it, I'll say, too late, it's outdated. Because while he's downloading it, I'm adding something. Well, I was printing this. It's outdated. Takes quite a while to print that. And this thing needs wheels. Anybody else?
Did you bring these clothing?
Nope, they are. Yeah, Brian, you want to tell us about these clothes?
What about the clothes? All right.
We having a fashion show?
Yes, we're having a fashion show. There, I
Well,
won't use this.
If you can see, oh, there, that's the dress I made.
And where did you wear this?
That one, that picture was taken at Fort Ontario. I wear that to history, related events that would have, been around the Revolutionary War. And I now have to remake it because I put on some weight. But I have to have it done before the
I've
fair.
come from Virginia and I was very much into reenacting, but it was on the south side. Now 30 years later, I'm on the north side.
Well, when I've got to redo the top part. The bottom part's all good, and I'm going to add another petticoat.
Okay. Wow.
Well, they had reenacting clothes. Most of what Margie and I did was French and Indian War, 1750s. These are just typical what commoners would have worn. The breeches, like button up front. This one, the cinch in the back to tighten it up. There were no belts really. There were no suspenders. There were belts, but not typically worn with these type of things.
And the guys who wore those in the French and Indian War were also wearing them in the Revolutionary War. The same pair of pants.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Because, well, these are probably 25 years old. We haven't been out in the camping doing this in a while, but yeah, if you made them right, we made these ourselves. It'd last. All hand stitched, and well, not all. This might have been a machine, but this was a little more for a dandy, more or less. They're a little better dressed.
Wow.
The stitch at the bottom, like with the fancy frills on the shirts. These buttons, these types of things just take forever to make. Sewing up all these little buttonholes and sewing on all these little buttons. But that's what they wore. This was the waistcoat. See, the shirts are very long. They didn't tuck them into their pants. Sometimes they would wear them outside. Depends on what type of what they were doing. Whether it was pretty much how they were living. Whether they were working or running through the forests and through the Courrier du Bois.
See, I have a machine for that, and nobody here would know the difference.
And this is another. It's loads and loads of buttons, and this is a little more dressier. The shirts, they had this one shows it. Well, it had little gussets in the front where they. No, not this one, of course. So, to keep them from tearing when you were wearing them. I love these things. Yeah, they did wear out a bit. We have loads of these things. Yeah, well, we did this for years. I think I have half a dozen great big tubs of folding. Both Arden's?
Yeah, Jenny, she was quite the sewer. Did she out given that?
Well, kind of. The patterns are very vague.
Yes.
So my mom did sew, and she could give me some hints, particularly with the gussets.
Yeah, put on the sleeves right side up and.
Yeah. Yeah, I found so many different ways to sew a sleeve on incorrect.
Yeah, wasn't most of the jacket had the sleeve on upside down the first time, but maybe not. I don't know.
There was one shirt, a rustic one that I made that I sewed it on inside out. I sewed cuff to the shoulder. How many times I took that apart? Don't do things when you're tired.
I don't make mistakes. I make work for the seam ripper.
Can you hear me? Oh, just do there,
Pardon?
Does it itch you now?
I don't know if it still fits me. I was just going to try. It's been like you said too.
That can be dangerous.
Wow, that's
Oh yeah, this way. Oh, almost.
Close enough.
Yeah, it's you're eating a little better now.
Just need a belly band.
And then there's summer deep.
There you go.
And I think typically they were left unbuttoned.
Oftentimes. Well, depends on if you were formal. I think you would have been buttoned up.
I'm trying to think of like some movies that actually.
Who's this?
This is
oh, that.
very, and it works quite well. It's a oilcloth.
That's a raincoat ever, I guess, right?
Oh, this is a great raincoat. Yeah, back when the old highwayman type thing, you would button right off. The color,
Yeah, I'm gonna indicate with the keyboard.
Button right off, and you know to keep you.
Yeah. Turn around so it's the camera.
You're a winner.
Aye.
Yeah, you really needed this type of.
The
type of
sneakers
thing.
really set it off.
Yeah, for the shit.
Brian, is it heavy or lightweight?
Loads of buttons too. This doesn't feel heavy when you're wearing so much with it. Right.
There's a substance to it, and so it's like a fish air. What word glove and honey. Okay, the home short. Yeah, it's happier than you think. Yep.
Oh,
So for as far as other, who were the other reenactors made this for us? And they were from what Florida, I say.
Oh, I wouldn't want to wear that in Florida.
we're outside.
Don't even remember those days when you wear those lacy Steve.
Take down night, get out of it.
No, it's a good move.
Pattern studies can be really hard to find.
Oh.
When you're looking for a pattern, it'll say authentic. I'm sorry, but they didn't have zippers back then. So a zipper up the back of the dress is not authentic.
That's why you want to does that have a zipper?
There is no zipper in there.
Okay, right, yeah.
I found somebody, Danielle at Ford, Ontario, is really good at telling me what is correct and what's not. So she sent me links to a couple different patterns, and she says that these two were acceptable. She liked this one better. And you know, and then we discussed fabric. I went to Hobby Lobby and I took pictures of the different fabrics that I thought, you know, I would like. And so I sent them to her, and she says, well, the purple one's out because purple was too expensive a dye, so they would not have had it. Only very rich people would have it, you know. And it's like, yeah, I knew it wasn't going to be, but I had to try because they were perfect. So, you know, she looks at the others and she says, any of the others would be good. And she said this was her favorite. I said, good, that's my favorite too.
Purple.
So,
Yeah, like you say, the fabric was very important, especially when we were trying to figure out what to make these things out of. The wool and the cotton
Yeah.
was similar.
and in my case, the dress had to be cotton, no polyester, cotton. And people say, well, that had to have been hot. It's like, no, trust me, that is way cooler than them shorts you got on. And that has 2 petticoats besides the dress.
Which is great in summer, huh?
Yeah.
Probably.
So then we got to the shoes. And, you know, and I looked at all of the sites where you buy stuff for reenactors, and I realized that all the Revolutionary War era boots had heels. I have an ankle that if I wear heels at Fort Ontario, I'm not walking the next day. So we decided we could compromise a little. I went down to Famous Footwear, and I took pictures of 3 boots there, and I sent them to her, and she says, this one's out. She says, either of those others would be good. And we both liked the same one. Then she told me where to get my stockings. Which you have to make garters for that. And there was no elastic. So you had a piece of fabric with ribbon on it, and you tied it around. 20 times a day.
Yeah, the same for the men's stockings. You know, they were came up underneath these came just over your knee. Then like you said, these tied off at the bottom. But yeah, they don't. At least the ones that we had don't stay up long.
Mm-hmm. Well, then I had the pattern for the hat, and I just could not make that thing look right. So finally, I just forget it. I'll just take it to Fort Danielle, fix it. Well, at the fort, the day that I was there, they had a lady there that does the games, you know, the old games with the kids. So she fixed my hat for me. So then I was there, and then she comes over and she hands me the straw hat. She says, no proper lady would go out without a hat. So I bought a hat.
Hey, what about sunglasses?
Well, you know,
Yeah, they seem a little out of sync with the rest of
these get dark. There's nothing I can do about it. And oh, the watch is not period correct either.
I can fix all that.
But you know, and I do not have the proper corset either.
Oh, thank God.
I bought the pattern. I got the boning. I got ready to start cutting it out, and I said, "Oh crap! I can't wear a corset. I have an insulin pump. I can't compress that." Danielle, she says, "Just go to the next period. They stop here." And she said that older ladies would wear corsets that have less boning. It's like, I qualify as older, right? She says, you can work it.
Well, back then, wasn't 30 older?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're 55 and you're pretty much infirm,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. But yes, these infirm guys live to 90.
Yeah.
Right.
They were infirm at 55, but they're still live to be 90.
Incredible.
And every one of these guys said they were infirm. And so was their wife.
Well, they're filing for pension.
That's right. And they were told what to say.
Right. Oh, my. Oh,
Fascinating. Right. Great job.
When I finished that dress, I said I'd never do it again. Guess what I'm doing? But I am using the seam ripper. I'm saving the bottom part.
So is this your favorite period of history?
Currently, yes.
Currently, because she's working.
I liked Civil War before that more. But once I got started on this became, my focus. I mean, I work on this at least 4 hours every night. So, but prior to that, I was more in the Civil War because let's see, great, I think it's 3 greats, grandfather was at Gettysburg, shot in both legs, and then at the Wilderness, he was shot in the shoulder, and I have the musket ball. So.
Now, there wasn't anybody living in town of Scriba at the time that.
During the Revolutionary War, none of these guys lived in Oswego County. If you lived in Oswego County, you were a Tory, and even then it was pretty dangerous because the Indians had scalped them too.
Yeah, all in Indian, yeah.
But so they all came here later. I did find one patriot who lived in Oswego County during the Revolutionary War, but it wasn't Vitos. David Ogden was captured at Fort Stanwix when he was 15. And he, Joseph Brant and his group captured him. And they brought him to this area, and he was adopted by a squaw to replace the son she had lost. So he lived with the Indians for a couple of years. And then there was a call for manpower from the Indians, and their white captives went along with them. So they came to Fort Oswego. And he and a guy named Danforth escaped from Fort Oswego. And we have a great account of exactly how they escaped.
Interesting.
But unfortunately, I can't find Danforth. I can't find him. So, because I don't have a first name. Huh?
Whatever happened to the
What was it?
one who was
adopted? He returned home.
Oh, okay.
And he said that he was standing at the top of the hill and he saw his mother come out of the house to go to the well for water. And he went down, he went through the gate, and his mother had saw him coming, but thought it was a stranger. And so he went through the gate, and his mother just looked at him and he said, "Mother, don't you recognize me?" And then they went in the house, and his mother said to his father, "Daniel has come home." He'd never settled in Oswego County, but he did live here with the Indians.
Okay.
And there were others, but we just don't know who they are.
Right.
And, you know, I'm including him in the book because even if it wasn't by choice, he did live here.
Yep.
And it's a great story.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they thought he was dead.
They did. They really did. He was with the Indians, I think it was 2 years, 3 months, and 18 or 19 days.
At least it wasn't 10 years.
Yeah.
Even worse.
Yeah. Well, they spoke some words that he didn't understand, and that was their adoption ceremony. And as soon as they spoke those words, he was, in, as far as they were concerned, an Indian with all of the rights of an Indian. But he said he really lived as a slave. Because he had all the rights of an Indian, but he wasn't allowed to leave. So, yeah.
So how long have you known that you were a DAR?
Hmm?
How long have you known that you're a DAR?
Oh, long before I became a DN member. It took a couple of years to prove one of the links. There's one generation where it's really tough because I got the Patriot and his son from pension papers, and then I got the other way through vital records. But there's that generation there between vital records and pension that was tricky to make. So, and then a few months ago, I got a call from one of my cousins, Mark Allen, who said he wanted to join the SIR, and he was having trouble with making one connection. I says, I can solve that. Why don't I just send you my DAR application? Because the SAR is not nearly as strict as the DAR. If it works for the SAR, or for the DAR, it'll work for the SAR. So he's hoping to be a member by the 4th of July. But I haven't heard anything yet, so I'm assuming it hasn't made it yet.
Debbie, could you say what DAR and SAR stand for people who don't know?
DAR is Daughters of the American Revolution. SAR is Sons of the American Revolution. And you have to have a direct line to the Patriot. It doesn't have to be just, one side. It can be men switching to women and then back and forth, but.
Oh, we're talking about a long time ago. What's happened?
Just that too. It was from very beginning of the creation.
Can I ask you? You said you thought West was out there somewhere, but you found out we were the West, right?
Yeah.
That's like all of the United States. That was the westernmost part.
During the Revolutionary War, New York was the western frontier.
Okay, I just needed to know that.
That's
so I can hear.
Yeah. But that's the one thing they forgot to teach us in school. We thought it all happened out west because we're Westerns.
And if you read about the people that settled in here, they were coming up with ox carts if they were lucky. In most cases, they just walked up and they created their cabin, spent some time in here, and then went back and pat the family.
Right.
And brought them.
A lot of times, the father and a couple of sons would come.
Into the wild area.
Yeah, and they would build the first cabin, and it was usually pretty small.
Yeah. If that's what James did, he ended up coming up with, I think it was Coes, or who did he come up with? There was another family.
Coes lived near them.
Yeah, well, they of course they connected in many ways.
Yeah.
But they.
There was another guy that came with him too.
Yeah, I can't remember the name, but in doing so, they came up and had created something for Eben. Then started that as a term. So.
James came with Joseph Bailey.
Right. So.
And he also deserted at Saratoga, but I haven't proven that he was on the American side at all.
Yeah, because I know the two of them left at the same time.
Yeah.
I think.
I suspect that he did serve because James did, and he deserted at the same time, and he came to New Haven together. So I suspect that he did, but I haven't proven it yet.
Now, the land grants that were done, were they done primarily for the soldiers as a means of paying them back, or was it anybody could?
No, the land grants were for the soldiers, and it was based on what your rank was. A private got so many acres, a corporal got so many acres, and yeah, that was in lieu of pay.
Right. And I didn't know if it was restricted or what.
Yeah.
Interesting. We gotta give more information to you.
It's amazing all the information.
Did you have up here? It's just, you are amazing.
No, it's in here. And I pull it out and put it in here when I know I need it. Because I could talk about, patriots from anywhere in the county, but it's like, I know you guys are interested in the ones from here.
You want to talk a little bit about your office? That's awesome. And when you're there, maybe.
My awesome office.
Yeah.
I had the greatest job on earth. I was town clerk in New Haven for 18 years. And then when I retired, I was a deputy for a while, and I was the historian in Bali for a year and a half till the building made me sick. And then Marie retired, and I became the historian in New Haven for a year and a half, and I figured I'd be there for 20 years. And one day I was at the county clerk's office arguing for access to the county home records for like the fourth or fifth time. And I sat down and he says, we need to talk about the next county historian. I'm drooling. And then, and it's like, man, that is my dream job. But I'm supposed to be retiring and doing less, not more. So I turned it down. And a few days later, I called. I told Nancy I need to talk to Terry about the historian's job. She says, well, he took the day off the plow field. 15 minutes later, I got a call from Terry. He got off the tractor. So, as county historian, I work in the Records Center, which is in the same building as the DMV. And we have census records, which are mostly available online, but ours are clearer. We have naturalization records. I had a couple in there earlier today researching some of their ancestors, and they found their naturalization papers. And they were thrilled, although they were old enough that all they got was a card. More recent ones, we have a lot more. But the older ones, we just have a card that just gives a few dates and, a little bit of information. But they were thrilled to have that. And, so we have county directories, we have cemetery censuses from a lot of the cemeteries. Basically, the cemetery censuses in the 60s, 70s, mid-time period, volunteers, mostly from the historical societies, went around and wrote down what was on every headstone in the cemetery.
Wow.
A lot of work. So we have them for a good share of the cemeteries. And then the warehouse out back has all the county records. And if anybody has ever watched The X-Files, when they walk into the warehouse and they turn on the lights going down the row, that's our warehouse.
Uh-huh.
Cool. But we have tax records going back to 1850 for most towns. Some of them not quite that far, but most, some of them we got back to 1850. We actually have the original census books. I don't even look at them. I can. Oh, I have once, because I was told I needed to look in the back. Because apparently, and sometimes in the back of those books, they record things like how many pairs of mittens were knitted in the household in that year. So it's like, I really have to go play with them sometime. We also have the original of all the land records. The ones downtown that you guys get to look at are copies. we have the originals. But if I'm looking for a land record, I go downtown because we don't use those originals if we, don't have to. When I was researching Solomon Smith, I said something to Terry, this was before I became the county historian, that it was hard to read this because they took the book, they put it on the copy machine, and they shrunk it to fit on paper, And so he says, well, if you want, we can get the original out. It's like, oh, it's nice to know people. So I'm generally there on Mondays, unless I have an intern who only has who has to come in on Tuesday because that's the only day she has no classes. And then I'll switch to Tuesday. Or I'm back to Mondays again. We also have
Rent the DMV.
Yeah, same building as DMV. When you walk in the front door, the DMV, you go to the left to go to the DMV, you go to the right and you're in my office. Go. Yeah. And, when I agreed to take the job, I told him my biggest concern is we do get a fair amount of snow. He's not to worry. He says you can set your own hours and you can work mostly from home. So, the job doesn't pay much. He told me what it paid, and I says, well, it'll pay for the gas. It isn't just about.
Really gotta like your job.
Yeah. So I usually go in on Mondays, and the rest of the week I work in Scriba, Richland, Williamstown, Hannibal. Oh, this week I was in Krogan.
Wow.
So you never know where I'm going to be.
Is there a new revived interest, or in history?
Just in the last month, I've seen a little bit of an uptick with the 250th finally getting some air.
Yeah.
There's been a little bit more interest. With the 200s, there was a big increase in the number of people doing their genealogy and stuff. And the 250th is having a little trouble gaining momentum, but it is getting there. And by the way, the county fair, July 1st to the 5th, the historians have their own building, the Heritage Building. And we all set up displays that have to do with usually our town's history. Sometimes I do something that's just general. I better figure out what I'm doing soon.
Oh, yeah.
I started setting up my display this morning. It looks pretty. However, my boards are still blank.
Well, at least that's a start.
But, I know that this book will be there. Last year, I listed all of the soldiers that I had. But the book is at least twice as big this year, and it won't fit on the board. So I got to do something a little different. I just haven't figured out exactly what. So, but the whole fair is trying to really concentrate on the 250th. That their theme this year is Farm Family Freedom, 200 Years of America.
250.
Or 250 years of America.
Are you
Saying 200.
So since it's such a interesting title or a theme, you're gonna be dressed. Everybody gonna be dressed.
I will be wearing the dress.
No, but I mean, will everybody be? All these
I have no
vendors
clue.
and such. Oh,
I have no clue what anybody else will do. Most of them will probably be wearing their shorts and sitting this way while I'm walking around being perfectly comfortable.
Yeah, you should be comfortable. Yeah.
I don't tell them that I'm standing over the fan. Yeah, you get my petticoats and nobody gets out.
You can get those mini fans that hold up your stockings.
Hey, there's an idea. That might hold my stockings up better than those garters that I know. Those garters don't work for crap. They sometimes don't even make it out of the house.
Oh, thank you. No, God. Nuts.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming and putting up with me.
And the other plane, he goes.
Something I eat my